Hello, hi everyone. Welcome. Let's go ahead and wait. I know we were having some technical issues, so we're gonna wait until it streams onto YouTube. There you go. All right. So we did have a little bit of technical issues, but we are back, and so welcome to the Growing Generations podcast. This is episode 7, and so in today's episode, we'll be discussing all about how to achieve abundance. I know this is a really cool topic to discuss about, especially since there's a lot of beginner gardeners out there, a lot of gardeners just wanting to learn some new techniques, etc., just to see how they could amp up how much food they are producing in their backyard, how many herbs, etc. It all varies. And so I'm bringing one of my very good friends over, Itzia from, it's a pretty big name, but it is Bloom with Grace Garden, Florida. She's mainly active on Florida on Instagram, but she's also a Floridian gardener as well. And so have been looking through her content, and she does do really cool stuff. Some things I haven't even seen before, which one of them we'll be discussing about in today's episode. So let's go ahead and invite Asa into this week's episode.
Hi, Emmanuel. How are you? Hi, everybody.
Hi, I am good. How's everything over there?
It's going pretty good. I'm actually excited to meet a new Florida gardener. I feel
Yeah,
so lonely sometimes in my Florida garden.
yeah, I agree. It's really, really important that we're able to make connections with some local
I
people. Are
agree.
you in northern, central, or southern Florida?
So I'm actually in between. So I'm at the line. I would say my garden is south because
Okay.
it is super connected with South Florida. But I'm considered central because I am literally at the line, but I'm
Oh,
10A. But every single time I see a few of the girls that are from South Florida, my garden is pretty much right there. So I
yeah,
would say south.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And here in my southern garden, it is getting hot.
Yeah.
It
Today
is
was nice though.
getting, yeah, today was,
Yeah,
it gave
today
us a
was
little
nice.
break today. It gave us a
Right,
little
right,
break
right,
today. I was really happy to see how the weather was faring with us, and so, but we're getting pretty hot. It's increasing its temps lately, and I am not excited about that. I am not excited about that whatsoever.
very nice.
Um,
It's like Jay saying he's from Canada. That's awesome.
Yeah, Jay is our moderator, an
Yeah,
amazing moderator, a great
very nice.
moderator.
Very
And so we love Jay. And so something we'll be discussing today, as we have discussed prior, is how to achieve abundance. It's really important to discuss this because I feel like a lots of people think that it's just like planting a seed and then wow, you'll get a cucumber, or wow, you'll get a zucchini, or it's like wow, just something simple. However, in order to get the best out of things, you have to jot some things or do some things in order to achieve what you want, which is abundance. And so, as stated before, we're both Floridian gardeners, and
Mm-hmm.
especially towards southern gardens as well. And so we deal with tropical,
Yeah,
humid,
sandy
sandy
soil.
soil.
Nematodes.
And so that's something we deal with here in
Yeah,
Florida. Another gardener who was the very first gardener I streamed with here at Growing Generations podcast was Dominique. She's in
I saw.
Central.
Yes, I did see that. That's awesome.
She's in Central Florida.
Uh-huh.
And so she focuses on raised bed gardening. However, I do agroforestry, which is in-ground plantings. Do you
Okay.
focus on in-ground plantings or do you do containers?
I do everything. I feel like when I first started, I was trying to not spend a lot of money because it's
Mhm,
a hobby, right?
mhm.
Um, my grandparents, I grew up always seeing gardening. My grandparents, on both sides, my grandfather had cornfields and he had beans. He had a whole room where he kept all his corn, which later he turned into like a bedroom. But I remember growing up and seeing that. So for me, I was like, well, if I'm really going to take it seriously, I don't want to go out there and spend a ton of money until I can prove to myself that I can do whatever it is. So I had cinder blocks, and I actually started with cinder blocks that I had at the house. And then I saw some of my family members throwing out bins, and I said, well, and I brought in bins. I think it was Robbie at that time that I was watching. I don't remember the name of her YouTube channel, but I remember she helped me a lot because she does very simple gardening, like gardening with what you have, which I think is amazing because it's so, when you're first starting, you feel so overwhelmed, like you don't know where to start. You don't know what to use. You don't even want to put a seed in there because you feel if you put a seed, it's going to be wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not that complicated. But I do everything. I have bins. I bought my first raised beds last year, actually.
Wow.
My first raised beds. But mostly it's just been whatever I have around the house. So I have a little bit of everything. I do have some in ground, which tomatoes do so good in ground here in our soil.
Yes.
For me, at least, which I've been surprised to learn how many things do well with our sandy soil.
Yeah.
Just a little amending. So I can't answer that. I have a little bit of everything. I do wood chips. I do chop and drop. I have the Mexican flour. I love to chop and drop. I chop and drop moringa. I chop and drop banana leaves. Whatever I have on hand, I feel like I use to not have to bring so much stuff in. So,
yes, that's really important.
How do I answer
that? So when it came to on my end, because I don't have a huge area, I work in the city. I live in Margate. This is my city, and so I have like limited space, but I do have enough space to fit a couple fruit trees. Do what I gotta do. But I started off with pots because I started when I was 7. I'm 17 now.
Nice.
And so it was a gradual effect. It was start off with pots and then we'll see. And it has came up to be what I do as a career now and what I'm studying in school as well. And so it went from like being pure ornamentals because that's where I started. Laura from Garden Answer.
Yeah, she's so good.
I love her so much. I started seeing her when she was getting ready to leave her townhouse, I believe, or something like she was in her beginning stages when she was moving into her new house. And so I was so like inspired by her. And I've been wanting to collaborate with her, but she's been pretty busy. It'll come. Well, it'll come one day. But I have graduated done from ornamentals to now solemnly focusing on agroforestry, since that is a branch I like to do now, and that's where I work at right now. That's what we specialize in food forestry, or permaculture, which is sustainable gardening, which here in Florida, that's what you're gonna see. Because
I saw one of your podcasts and I saw you guys are doing a nursery and like all that kind of stuff. So I'm so excited for that turmeric you were talking about.
Yeah. I was discussing with Kay. I know that was the episode that we discussed more of it. But yes, I do have a nursery in Parkland that I am working on. It's currently under renovation right now. Because I decided to spice up the design side of it. And so we're working on design right now until we open up again. But yes, we are getting into what I'm going to have for this upcoming growing season, because we grow from, or what we provide is rare stuff you won't see. Like you will have Jamaican strawberry trees, peanut butter fruits, vanilla. We will have so many things. Yeah. And one of those things that we specialize in is our turmeric, because we do both regular orange turmeric and we do blue turmeric. Our main one is blue turmeric. Yeah. But I've been wanting to branch out to do green, yellow, and purple, which is also known as black turmeric. And so I wanted to do that. So I'll be pushing towards that this year. And so it's totally depends, because I see a lot of agroforestry here in Florida because we have the perfect climate for it.
Yeah, we do.
And all of our fruit trees love it down here. And so I always say, hey, I love giving people tours of the property, because what you see as like the podcast background, that's one of the areas I worked in and designed. And this area, so the whole land is 2.6 acres. The nursery is only a small little corner. But I went through and I did all the design wise of everything, and it
It's a
looks
lot of
so
work
cool.
for
It's
sure.
so
So
cool,
yeah,
and
it's a lot
especially
of
since
work.
everything is not even 2 years old; it's about a year and a
It
half
looks
old.
beautiful. Yeah.
And so that's what inspired me, because I was like, you would expect this scenery to take years to develop and to
Yeah.
get to this point, while in reality it only took about a year and a half. And so that's what I'm trying to achieve with my garden, and it's slowly getting there. I've been trying to incorporate bananas and stuff now. I just filmed I'm going to film a video about my Grumi Chama cherry, or Brazilian cherry. That one is, I feel like it's an underrated tree. I don't know if you
I
heard
don't
of it
think I've
before.
heard of that.
Because there's the common
No.
one that you'll see down here. That's the
Mhm.
Barbados
I
cherry.
do have, yeah.
Um,
I have some of those. Yeah.
yeah, that's the common one.
It's
But the
still
one
small. Mine is still small though.
mine's a big bush
Is
thing.
it?
Like,
Mine is still small. I just think I actually found this great company from, it's called Wellspring Gardens,
okay,
and they I bought a pomegranate from them and a banana tree from them,
mhm.
and I think when I bought my banana trees from them, I got them for like $10. And
Oh,
I got them last year and they were this big. And now they're pretty big. And I do have large banana trees that I remember took forever to grow when I first started. And now they're popping babies everywhere.
yeah.
And I'm probably going to have to move them because they're on my side garden. So they're,
Oh,
I think in that section now, there's probably like 7. And at first it was like, when is it ever going to grow? So I think definitely banana trees, if you're trying to grow a garden, is definitely one of the best things for like nitrogen and for, like to chop and drop and like all that kind
yeah.
of stuff, just for
I
fertilizing.
definitely agree with that. At the farm,
Yeah.
we have hundreds of bananas, hundreds of all different types of varieties, from the blue Java, from Burro, Manzano, a whole
Hmm.
bunch of different ones. And we just incorporated variegated, the Florida variegated Musa variety.
Hmm.
And I got one myself. I actually have it here acclimating right now. I actually have it here acclimating. And so I've been babying it.
You're babying it. I see that.
I've been babying it because, like, I had a first one and that one died, and so I got a new one from one of my good friends, Sydney from Bee Leaf Tropical. She provides them, and I got it from her. And so I'm like, I'm gonna let you grow a little bit more until I make you go outside.
Yeah.
But I've been working a lot and getting that. But bananas are one of my favorites. They're one of my favorites. They're low maintenance, easy to grow. And I know from like a gardener who's does a lot of permaculture, David the Good. He's
Yes.
a well-renowned gardener who focuses on permaculture. He
Hmm.
actually invited me to his house because he grew up here in Fort Lauderdale.
Is he still here? Didn't he move to,
He Alabama, I believe.
oh, something? Yeah,
But he
I remember
comes
it was up north.
visiting. He come
I see.
visits. And
Mm.
so when he came to visit one time, he invited me out into his childhood garden and how it looks and everything. And he does not have sandy soil. It is
Because
so
of
weird.
of
All
what
the
he's done, or the,
amending,
I
yeah, all the amending he has been doing, that now it's just pure rich soil. And that's what I want to achieve. Who does not want to have
Mhm.
rich soil? And
Mhm.
so it was so fascinating to see how everything comes together in one harmony. And in my trip over there, he gifted me true yams, and then he gifted me my baby blue Java banana. I call it pitufina. um, and so, that's in Spanish, but in English it's called Smurfette. But
Actually, a translation for that? I had no idea.
yeah,
Between.
it had a translation for it. It's called Smurfette because it's from like the
Uh-huh.
Smurfs, and it's the blue Java banana, and it is so big right now, and it has 2 pups in it right now, and I've been so happy to see how big it's been getting. But yeah, I definitely love seeing that. But circling back,
Of
how
course.
did you start your gardening journey? How did it all start? Where were you like, let's go ahead and start? Let's go ahead
I think
and
I've
start.
always had a love for gardening, if I'm honest. I mean, like I was telling you before, my grandparents, I grew up, the best memories I have are probably sitting down, grabbing corn and scraping it, like to get all the little pieces out, like my grandfather on my mom's side always had mango trees, guava trees. We would sit on the guava trees and just eat. And I remember my abuela, she used to say, don't eat too many because then you're not going to be able to go, because it was just something we love to do. Growing up with that side of the family, and then my dad's side of the family had pigs, had like animals, had all sorts of stuff. So then when we moving here, it was like I went completely like, I was working in an office, always on a computer. I was working doing payroll for a company, for a really large company, working in human resources. So I was inside a lot. I was barely ever outside, but I always wanted to be outdoors. So I would do little flowers here and there, and then they would die. And then I would go buy more, and then I would kill them again. And it was just like a little process here and there. And then I started getting into I started working at a chiropractor's office doing therapy there. And I was in a room all the time doing therapy, but it was a dark room, so it was nothing outside. I started feeling ill, always lacking vitamin D. Then I went through some health issues where I had 4 miscarriages. And then I finally am blessed with my kids, and I have my son, and he's special needs. And it started making me question a lot of things. Like, why is it that we are so toxic? Like, what is it that makes us so toxic? And I started slow. I started, little by little, like doing a little plant here, a little plant there. And like I said, I would kill them. And then I just started planting extra, and then I would plant more. And so as I started to take my son outside more, I started to see that he was healing a lot more. And I started seeing myself feeling better as well, with my health issues. And it made me just feel like, honestly, it made me feel like I was being invited to be healthy outdoors. It was like my body was seeking to be outside. And I think a lot of times, a lot of what we are feeling is that our body wants us to reconnect with nature, reconnect with what God created for us, So if I'm honest, I think it's just something that has gradually become a love. And it's like you said, you start with one thing, and then when you least expect it, you have a whole bunch of everything, and you don't even know how you got there. I remember being so intimidated to start one little plant. And I think when I first started, I started with plants that were gifted to me, and they had the tomatoes had blight. I had no idea. I had no idea. So I planted tomatoes with blight. I planted peppers, and I had this huge pepper, and it was beautiful, but it wasn't growing. And when I pulled it out a year later, it was full of knots on the bottom. And it was just like a learning experience, one after the other, one after another, which is how we learn as gardeners, by mistakes and by killing stuff. And so I think just the fact that I noticed myself healing as I am in nature, it became something so natural and therapeutic, and I feel like it's not only helped me mentally, physically, with eating, with exercising, with the kids, my husband, I feel like it's all just something that has become so fruitful, not just fruitful in like, oh, I have food, but it's become fruitful as in it's uniting us to a creation that we were gifted. It was a creation that was gifted for us, and that sometimes we underestimate and we don't take care of and we don't love. So it's become more than just gardening at this point, I believe. It's become and I think every single time we compost a little more, every single time we just do a little more, and it feels like we're not doing anything, but it's like you say, then you go look at the soil and it's like, wow, like I remember when this was just sand. I remember grabbing it and it would just like, the sand would just come down on my fingers. And there's a section in my back garden, because I have 2. I have one in the side, which is the one I started with, and then I have one in the back. And the one in the back garden, you can see where the horses walk. You go like this, and it's just sand. It looks like we just threw sand in there. But where my garden starts, you start to see the changes in the soil, and you start to see how it's already starting to to have so much good alive, it's alive, it's getting there. So I can't wait to see what in a few years it'll look like.
Yeah, I definitely agree because when it comes to gardening, I've always said it. It's never done. It's never done because it's always a changing thing.
Hmm.
You can't tell me that your garden is gonna look the same from now, fast forward even a few months, because
Right.
it's gonna change. You're probably gonna lose some things. You're gonna add some things new. It always changes. And something that we have yet to discuss about is soil, because that's one of the
Yes,
most important things.
I
Because
agree. That's
here
actually
in
the first
Florida,
one on my list for the whole abundance, because
yeah,
soil is one of the most important key, you
yeah,
know.
the key features for abundance is your soil, because
Mhm.
without the proper soil, you ain't gonna have a flourishing garden.
Yeah.
Here in Florida, we have sandy soil. Although it's well draining, there's no nutrients that stays
Mhm.
behind. So we have to do lots of amending.
And you know what I've noticed, Emmanuel? Now that my soil is healthier. So I told you I have two gardens. I have my side garden, I have my back garden. And I
Mhm,
love comparing the two because my side garden hardly ever has pests. It's very
mhm,
rare. The most that I'll see pest is around pest pressure time, which is like
mhm.
March, April, and that's the worm, which you can't get away with. That one just shows up, the cucumber worm. But other than that, a little aphid here and there if I put too much tomato tone or something like that, but I
Mhm.
don't see a lot. And in the back garden, there is so much because it's a newer garden. It's a newer garden and it's not completely, I don't have as much pollinator stuff as I have in my side garden because it's more established. Over here, I have Cuban oregano everywhere. I have basil. I have this. I have that. I have all these different herbs and things that I plant. So it invites a lot of, and I have more birds. And in the back, I notice the difference in how they get affected because of the soil quality is still building.
Yes.
So definitely amending the soil is probably the number one, I would say, for abundance, you
I
know.
would definitely agree as well, because a lot of people may think when they're just given the name, "Oh, amend your soil." We're not just talking about if you have compacted soil, fluffing it up, or just
Right.
throw fertilizers in there. No, we're talking about like amend it for over the next few years, even
Yeah.
because a garden
Feed it.
is always amending.
Yeah.
Because what
Feed
I'm
feed
gonna
your
get ready to
soil.
do here at the Ultimate Garden is we're
Mhm.
gonna go through and have an entire load of mulch be laid down, because the weeds,
Mhm.
one, are very annoying. Since we don't have no cold period, we don't have a break. You can
Right.
weed them, and then like within 3 days, 2 days, you'll see something popping up again. And
Yes.
so we're trying to suppress that. And what's one of the ways? By heavily mulching your areas.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
what does that help? Once that wood decomposes, it is a natural amender. And once
Mhm.
again, any fruit trees you may have, the leaves, if like the bananas, if it falls down and the mother plant has died, it's just a whole cycle that tends to always fall in the right spots. And
Mhm.
so once again, the key feature to abundance, I would have to agree, is soil, because without proper soil, you might not have the best garden. You'll have a garden, but not so fruitful
Yeah,
because
I
it
think
really
I think
needs it.
unhealthy. I'm sorry to cut you off. I think unhealthy plants or unhealthy soil definitely will cause more bugs, more pest
Mhm.
pressure, and because a plant that is not healthy is more attractive. It's
Yes.
more attractive. So definitely, the healthier the plant and the healthier the soil, or the other way around. The healthier the soil, the healthier the plant will be. So
Exactly like how it's
definitely.
always said, you always have to have a firm base in order to build everything up on top of it, and your base in the garden is your soil.
Do you
That's
guys
where.
do mainly mulch for your amendment, or do you add more things to your soil?
So comparing both the farm and my garden, so my garden I kind of neglected because of the fact that I've been just so busy with the nursery and with my school works. But the thing
Mhm.
I'll be coming with, what I'll do in my garden, is one will be doing mulching. I have mixed in some, or I would fertilize with earthworm castings, probably dump in some new soil here and there. But mainly we depend on mulching in general for both my garden and the nursery, since it's like cheapest thing you could go for,
Mhm.
especially since you could get it for free.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really cool because it's a natural fertilizer, releases nitrogen back into the soil. It amends your soil so you don't have straight up sand.
Mhm.
And it makes your garden look formal and neat. And it
Mhm.
suppresses weeds, which is what I really want.
Yes.
And so that's our main source of amending. Other than that, like main industrial type fertilizers, we don't really keen on, or I don't keen on. I only do like compost or like natural things like the earthworm castings or earthworm casting teas.
Mhm.
I used to be a fan of the Espoma products, but
Mhm.
I kind of like faded away from those since one, they are on the pricier side. Two, there's other substitutes you could find. So
Mhm.
that's what we mainly use. How about you?
So I added worms not too long ago. I've actually added them twice, and I think that was one of the things that I loved. Um, and then the other thing that I love to do is using the moringa and the banana leaves. I also have been using the pigeon pea lately, so I chop it and
Okay.
drop it. It doesn't look the neatest, but it decomposes so fast that it doesn't bother me. It's so when, especially when the warm temperatures come and get here in Florida, it decomposes so quickly for me. I mean, I can do it in a month later. It's you can't even see it. So for me, using the banana leaves to suppress some of the weeds, and some of the, I guess to me, my garden, the aesthetic is important, but it's not the most important. I don't mind, like some of my garden beds, they have mulch that I source, like they have a straw. But there's other ones that I don't mind. If I see that there's, like the other day, there was a whole bunch of banana leaves everywhere that were starting to get shade my other garden, and I said no. And I went out there, I chopped them, and I placed them under my broccolis. And that's okay. Like that's okay with me. It's not okay with everybody if you want a beautiful garden. But for me, I'm okay with that. Um, One of the loofahs, I don't know if you saw, I had this volunteer loofah drop a seed. Those loofahs were massive. And
Mm-hmm.
they were the ones that I chopped and dropped on. I put banana leaves on it. I put pigeon pea leaves. I put sunflower tithonia, and those are the one. That's the one that like had the most, explosive size that I've grown. So I do believe that fertilizing with different types of leaves and plants and things like that makes a huge difference in my garden.
Yes,
Yeah.
I definitely agree. There is a question from our moderator. You have such quality and vibrant photographs on your Instagram. How did you gain those skills?
Do I?
Yeah.
I don't know, do I? Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, but I appreciate it. Half the time
It's just
I'm trying to
the
get a buzz
aesthetic.
off taking a picture. But thank you.
Yeah, a lot of us don't have a lot of
Yeah.
technical backgrounds or videography backgrounds. We kind of just go out there with what we got.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, going back to what we were talking about, another thing I think that for abundance that I had here was the climate. I think that
yes.
planting in season, planting with the zone, planting with wherever your climate is. Is it cool? Is it hot? What kind of vegetables are you planting? I think for abundance, you have to be flexible. I think for me, when I first started gardening, I wanted to just plant zucchini. And sometimes zucchini is tricky, like if you don't, with
Yes.
with the humidity here, with like, it's not impossible, but it's tricky. And there's different options. Like there's cucusa, there's chayote, there's the gourds, there's so many different options. Trombosino, Seminole pumpkin, like there's so many different options. And I think abundance, especially here in Florida, comes with a variety of flexibility.
Hmm.
Cilantro is starting to bolt, then put place down culantro, or place down papalo or something else. Spinach is not available anymore for you because it's getting too hot. Okay, well, now it's time for you to do something else. There's so many different tropical spinaches here. Right now, we're getting to like the point here where a lot of things, as you notice, are starting to kind of, notice the heat. I think
Yeah.
a few of my cilantro plants are already bolting, which is rare because usually Urban Harvest has amazing seeds. They bolt.
Yes.
They have the ones that I've used from her. They bolt way later. I think like in May or June. But I tried new seeds this year and I didn't really have success. I used the ones I saved last year, but I think that's one of the main things for abundance here in Florida, at least for us. And I know you have people connecting from different areas, but I think knowing what does well in your area.
Yes.
For us, a lot of things, Egyptian spinach, I don't know if you've ever tried it. It's really good. And during the summer, I mean, you have so much of it, like there's so many different options when it comes to things like that. And it's being flexible of not just having regular spinach that you see at the store. We have the curly kale, which does well, but then eventually once the heat comes, it goes
Mhm.
away. But then we have lacinato kale, which does amazing and it gets huge, and you can harvest that. I don't know how long you can harvest that one for, but that one has gone for me sometimes all year, So it's to me, I think when it comes to that, it's just kind of having a flexibility in what you can grow. Have you tried chayote yet? Have you tried to grow it yet?
So that's the thing. That was one of the things on my list to talk about since I know you've done it very well. But I do have to agree with you about the like tie-in about
Yeah,
things like substitutes, like the cinnamon
right.
pumpkin. We have two varieties of spinaches here, like longevity, and we have sisu, which I think one of those are otherwise known as Egyptian spinach. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um, but we find all different substitutes because if we're not able to grow one thing, we're gonna find another thing, and that's
something
really
different.
important. Like one thing that I have successfully grown regular russet potatoes before,
Hmm.
but they're not in great abundance. I wouldn't fit them in abundance because you just get a little small handful. And
Hmm.
so what we grow instead is potato mint, African potato mint, because that one is a substitute, produces hundreds, maybe even thousands of mini potatoes for you to eat. And it's a
Okay.
perennial down here in Southern Florida.
I'll have to
And
try that one.
so
I haven't planted that one yet. I'll
and
try
so I know when a lot of people come back to the nursery, they're like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Well, this is your new plant
that.
that you will try out." And so we've been working on lots of things over there. But chayote, on the other hand, so my family, Mexican descent, we I've never seen my parents actually cook with chayote before.
Really?
I
Oh,
heard of it.
very
I seen
interesting.
it. I asked them about it, but I don't think we're huge fans of it. And so
Okay.
something I do is I won't dedicate 100% of my time to something I know we're not going to eat. I know
Yes.
there's some things that my mom is questionable about, like
Mhm.
the bananas and the different colored type plants. She's not a huge
Mhm.
fan of.
Yeah.
But I will be growing other things that we have, like pomegranate and the cherry varieties we brought in, loquats, the
Those are
bay
so
leaves,
abundant
so
here
many.
right now. The low
Yes,
quats. Yes.
and so I only go off of what we're able to eat. Not to say
Mhm.
I will never plant it or try it. It's just I'll have to find a source to get it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I know you've made a few videos on the chayote before, which is really, really cool. And I think they look really cool as well. But I
It's
have
a
grown loofah as
squash.
well.
It's a squash.
Yeah, I have grown loofahs as well. Never grew them again, but I have grown loofahs before. They were very successful. We still have loofahs that we have yet to use from that harvest, which was about a year to 2 years ago. But I probably might not grow it again. Well, probably I will, but I would have to have the space for it.
Yeah, and I think that's the
Different
key
area.
too. That's the key, like if you're gonna use it or if you're gonna eat it, then grow it. If not, then don't bother.
Mhm.
Eggplants are so beautiful to me. When I first
So
started, I was like,
yummy.
"Oh, eggplants are so beautiful," and I had these huge purple eggplants, and I was harvesting like 10, all the, and I wasn't eating them fast enough, and I didn't even have that many plants. And yes, it does so good here, but I wasn't eating them. So I haven't grown eggplants anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, if and I, you can give them away, but that's space that you can use for something different that you can eat.
Yes.
So I think for me, I added asparagus this year to that bed where I had the eggplants. Like I've added different things that I know I love or I know I enjoy. So
Yeah.
definitely open your fridge, I would say, and say, okay, this is, or go through your grocery list and say, this is what I eat. This is what I like. For me, tomatoes are always tomatillos or salsitas.
Mhm.
I want some salsitas. So I have tomatillos. I have, chilitos.
Yeah.
I want some peppers. So definitely, I know the things that I enjoy, and I think
Yes.
I've kind of gotten the hang of the things that the kids or my family likes. And some things I do like to try new, but it's like you say, do I have the space, and am I willing to give that space up for something that I know I'm gonna eat?
Yeah.
And I think at the beginning, it's okay for you to not know what you like and what you don't like, but then as you progress, then you'll know what you don't want to waste your time on. Time and
Yes.
soil, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, I definitely agree with you because I'm always trying new things, but now especially since with agroforestry, what you're doing is you're saying bye bye to your basic vegetables, and you're only
Mhm.
focusing on things that are like perennials, or like they are bigger sized trees, things that will forever stay, or
Yeah.
they're biennials. And so I have grown, like I still have cabbages and cauliflowers I'm growing here and there because I'm able to pop them in certain spaces, because I know we get rid of those real quickly, especially since
Mhm.
my second mother, which is my neighbor, she eats cabbage
She likes
very
that.
quickly. And my dad eats cauliflower. So hey, I like growing brassicas. I love brassicas, are my favorite, especially
Mhm.
cauliflower and cabbage. But anything that's like eggplants, yeah, I have seeds for them, but I know we're never gonna eat them because
Yeah.
we don't like eggplants. Um, I am trying to dip my toes into trying Seminole pumpkins. I want to see how that comes out. I do. There's many things that I'm trying to try
They
out
don't
for
need
this
a lot of
year.
work.
And
Seminole
so like
pumpkin.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, we've grown them in the farm before, but it's oof, it's a great
They
ground
just get
cover.
big. Yes.
Yeah,
That's
the great
true.
ground cover. And so like something new that I planted, some few things I planted new in the garden recently was one, the Brazilian cherry. I
Mhm.
planted, I doesn't have like, I think it only has a week with me, and just yesterday it pushed out flower buds, and today it's flowering. So I'm
Mhm.
super excited about that. Another new thing I added was vanilla panifloria, which is vanilla that you would harvest.
Nice.
And then the other thing I added was variegated yucca. I want some pretty looking things because I also want to elevate the
You
looks,
want
and
it to
so one
look
of them
nice. Yes.
was variegated yucca. It
Mhm.
serves two purposes. It's pretty and it's edible.
And
And
see,
so
I think one of the things that you're mentioning is mostly like things that do good here,
yes,
It's a lot of things that, and for me, I'm starting to go that route more now too, like I'm experimenting with cassava, like I
oh
have comfrey now that I can like use for my salads, but I can also chop and drop it into the soil. I'm doing a lot of pigeon peats like around the borders so that I can have that for eating, but I can also have it to kind of cover a little bit. um, just kind of knowing or learning what does better here and going with that. You're saying Jamaican cherry, you're saying all these different things that do better in Florida. And I think for me, understanding that at the very beginning of my gardening journey was like because
yeah,
it just knowing the seasons on when to grow things, but also knowing what does better here. And not, I remember I had a whole bunch of blackberries and different things, but it wasn't the variety that does good here,
yeah,
so like looking for different ones that may do a little bit better here, or even cherries or things like this, like the Barbados cherry, or some of these other more tropical plants. Those are better options in the long run, and better buck for you for what you're going to put in your garden, so you're not spending as much money and investing your time, because Babying is tough. What
Yeah.
is there a favorite medicinal plant that you guys have?
Oof.
I love medicinal plants. I have so
Yes.
many things that I love to grow.
One of the things we specialize is medicinal plants, and so, oof, that's a long list I have to go
Yeah.
through. Um, oh, that's a very long list I have to go through and pinpoint medicinal. Oh, so for me, I guess it would have to be grape plantain. Grape plantain. It sounds like plátano, but it's not.
Okay.
It's a leafy green, and so I started growing this because my mother does have arthritis, and so this is an anti-inflammatory plant. You
Hmm.
barely hear of it, but it's very prolific down here, and it's also very pretty. And so I grew it, and it's very prolific. It is very medicinal. It's great for anti-inflammatory. It's packed with minerals, vitamins. It could grow in various conditions, and so grape plantain would have to be the one that I select for my favorite medicinal plant. How about you?
I think for me, probably favorite. I don't know that I have one, but lately one of the things that I've been so excited to harvest is my comfrey.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, as I mentioned before, with me being a therapist and working on a lot of people that have injuries and stuff like that, doing salves and things that are healing, or like you say, anti-inflammatory, like calendula. Those have been the ones that I tend to go for. Lemon balm, but one of the things about comfrey is that it is very good at healing bones. I've read. So to me, that's very interesting. And the few times that I've used it in the South, the my clients have been very happy with it. So I've always asked before I'd apply it, obviously, but it's just very interesting to me, to kind of do different things and I've been getting a lot more into making salves. So I've been saving more rosemary and peppermint and spearmint, and I have the gingers and like all these different things that I want to eventually start to use more for oils, like to make oils. Not necessarily just for eating them, but for making oils and applying them on us. My kids are small, so it's easier for me to apply them in an oil versus an edible ginger plant that they won't be able to eat. But going back to what we were talking about, abundance, I do have a few different things here that I wrote down.
Yes.
Maybe I had written down attracting crops, which are some of the benefit, things for beneficial and to attract beneficial insects.
Mm-hmm.
So, like sunflowers, dill, fennel, the orange nasturtium is something that I really like to do. The basil with the tomatoes. I do put Cuban oregano almost like in every single one of my garden beds, and I do garlic and onions or something like that to deter some of the pests and the smell.
Mm-hmm.
So I did write that down as one of the things that I really how about root knot nematodes? How about that
Huh?
topic for abundance? Have you had that in your garden? The root knot nematode? Have you had a problem with them?
Root knot nematode. I know that we're
Mhm.
trying to get. I heard of nematodes before, nematodes or
Yeah,
however you
so,
pronounce
yeah,
it.
so there's good ones and there's bad ones, but for
Yeah.
us, they stunt the growth of our plants.
Oh.
So if remember I was mentioning how at the very beginning I had this beautiful pepper plant, and when I
And it was
pulled it
stuck.
out, it was beautiful, but
Oh.
it was stunted growth. So you won't know until you pull it out and you see the roots. Some of the plants that are most exposed to that specific problem are things like cucumbers, tomatoes, and things like that. And they get root balls. So one of the things that we do here in Florida is solarize. So the way you solarize is you cover everything with a dark plastic in the hottest time in the summer to allow those bad nematodes to die, and that you will have to work your soil again once you plant because it kills good and bad, but it allows you to start fresh. If you plant things there again, they're going to be stunted. Even the carrots will get the little knobs. What I did last year is I had a bed that was infected, and I planted my onions there, and they grew with no problem because it doesn't affect my onions. So it's just kind of like, playing around with crop rotation, which is another big one, for
Mhm.
abundance. You don't want to plant a tomato in the same place you planted one last year, because it's going to pull the same amount of nutrients if you didn't put something else. So for me, adding, I don't know if you do, like in the summer, do you add cover crops? I like to do cover crops. I don't know if you guys do cover crops, but I do a lot of cover crops. Like, I mentioned the pigeon peas, but I also do, um, uh, I wrote them down. Oh my goodness, I'm going blank. I have a lot of different things that I cowpeas. I do jicama. I do jicama for nitrogen fixing. I do like a lot of different things to replenish the soil. I do hemp, and then mustard, which the marigolds also help for the nematodes. So like that's awesome. So I just plant a whole bunch of seeds wherever I'm not going to plant anything for the summer, and I chop them and I lay them on the ground as they grow. Because I want to be in the pool in the summer. But just kind of prepping for that future season, will give more abundance, I believe. If you continue to plant in the same area, eventually the soil will have more of the same pests and the same bugs and the same infections that will cause your future plants of the same crop to not be successful.
Yes.
So, checking the right nitrogen levels, or checking to make sure the soil it has whatever nutrients that it needs, or going back to what you said, taking care of our soil health and bringing everything back to where it was before we planted that beautiful tomato that gave us tons of tomatoes.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that because abundance is not a, let's say, a thing that you will get on your first try, especially for beginner gardeners who are watching this. You may receive a level of success in your garden, but because abundance, what in my terms, it's like having a lot of fruits and veggies and things to harvest.
mhm.
But as a beginner gardener or anybody who starts gardening, your first year is like your trial year. It's your, let's see what works best. Let me get to know my soil. Let me get to know my climate. Let me get to know how the plants tend to react during certain times of the seasons. And so that is your first year, your trial year. That's what I call it. It's your trial year as a beginner gardener.
Mhm.
Your second year is when you're gonna start knowing about what plants you prefer, what things you need to take care of, etc. And then that's your like progressive year. You're trying to progress in what you're doing. And by the time you're in your third or fourth year, or probably even a little bit earlier, you'll be reaching constant abundance. Because even with
Mhm.
me, it takes me a long time to receive abundance. I'll put it entre comillas or in quotes, because especially if gardening is not like your main job right now. Although yes, I have
Mhm.
the nursery and it's my job that I work at and it's my business, but my main priority right now is my schoolwork because I have to
Mhm.
study for what I'm doing. And
Right.
so I don't have 100% of the time to give to the garden. And so it totally depends on the time you're willing to give up, as well as the knowledge you build up, because you have hundreds and hundreds of gardeners you're able to read up on. If you're looking more towards agroforestry, some of the gardeners I would recommend is David the Good,
He's a good
Green
one.
Dreams. There, another one is the Urban Harvest, Elise Pickett. These are
Mhm.
great people you should watch when you want to achieve abundance in the spectrum of agroforestry.
Yeah,
However,
do there's a few other ones. Well, you're talking about more agroforestry,
yeah,
correct? Yeah,
agroforestry,
David the
but
Good is
there is
probably one of
so
them.
many other ones, not to mention for like more basic vegetable growing
Mhm.
or gardening. One very good friend of mine is she has a very long name, but let me get her book. Her book is right here. It's from Learn to Grow, I believe is her at. Let me go ahead and grab it.
I'm gonna, as you do that, I'm gonna say a few of the names that that have helped me a lot. Jara's garden actually is very, she's a very Florida-based type of gardener. So look up Jara's garden if you're in Florida. Petrina Homegrown and Wild Floridian are good ones too. The one that I learned a lot of like the in-bed composting from is from Robbie and Gary, Gardening Easy. Robbie is amazing. She'll just get a bin and make holes in it, and she'll just put it in there and then start throwing all her food scraps in there. And it's great because you have all these little worms coming and eating and then pooping in your garden bed, and you get, free worm castings, So I think Gardener Scott you had a little while
Yeah.
ago, like he's amazing. I learned so much from him. The Urban Harvest is actually also, she's in St. Petersburg, I think.
St. Petersburg.
There's like a few. I mean, we have Southern Latitudes. She's great too. She's in Florida and she's so good.
Okay.
She's so sweet. But looking for gardeners that are local. Gardener Scott he's not from here, but he's so good. He's so good. You have to watch him. He's just so good.
Wow. I like having the tip met from Colorado.
Colorado, yeah. What is it, James? Is it James Prigioni?
Prigioni, something like that.
He's really good. And of course, the guy from Self-Sufficient Me. Oh my goodness, I've learned so much from him. He is he's amazing.
Yes.
What about you? Which one was the one you were going to share?
So one of the books, so I know a lot of authors or gardeners who have books, and some of them have sent out some of their copies to me. And one of them, her name is Mesura de la Lana. She did this book called Four Season Food Gardening. It's really good. I went through and I read it, and it is packed with information from how to propagate strawberries, how to clear disease, what to plant during the summer, spring, winter, and fall. It gives you seasonal ones. It is packed with information. This is what I would recommend, especially for any beginner gardener wanting to do vegetable gardening in raised beds, since that's one of the things she specializes in. This is the book for you. She's an amazing gardener, and this is all she does, and she has amazing harvest. A few other people that is to mention: Callie Kim 29. She also is a great gardener that she has written many books. I know there's a company who is about 3 hours away from Loxahatchee. His name is Connor, and he owns a business called Incredible Edible Landscapes. And he has the most glorious stuff. Most of our plants were supplied from him. And he has great content to look up. David the Good as well is another honorable mention to look at. Gardener Scott, like we said before. Dominique Farmonique, she specializes in raised bed gardening as well. She does lots of collard greens. If you're wanting your collard greens, she's the one to go with. There's just so many cool things.
I don't think I've ever grown collard greens, and she makes me want to grow collard greens. Like I've grown mustard greens, I've grown all sorts of greens, but I've never grown collard greens. And just seeing her is
And so there's just so many gardeners out there that I have yet to wander off and meet. Kevin Espiritu, oh my God, the number one follower, gardener follower.
Epic Gardening, is that?
Yes. Great gardener as well. And so all of these people will help you achieve abundance. It's great to have connections where you're easily able to ask them, email them, message them, because they'll be able to respond to any questions you have. I've had people ask me about agroforestry, how to achieve it, etc. And I've given them tips and everything that they require, or if they need help on a certain disease, if you need help finding a certain plant for an area. That's what we're here for. There's a lot of educational gardeners out there. There is some gardeners out there who focus on showcasing what they have, etc. But there is some certain gardeners who specialize in it's depending on the branch that they're in, but it's called educational gardening or gardening education, because they teach you how to do it. And if you have any questions, you're able to ask them. Like for me, I'd be considered an agriculture educator. Other people might be considered a horticulture educator. It totally depends on what you fall into and what you're willing to
What if you're
learn
all over
about.
the place like I am? Like,
Yes, it's like it always falls depending on where you'll fall, where you as a seed will be planted and where you'll flourish. Because you
right.
can't tell me we're like I like to
That's
compare ourselves to plants because we're like if we're planted in an area or in an industry we don't
yeah,
like, we won't perform the best. But if we are
that is
uplifted and
true.
transplanted to another area or branch of gardening that we like, we will be performing the best. And so that's
Hmm.
why I found my spot in agroforestry. You found your spot in probably the same thing, agroforestry, but
I
it's
think that's
little bit
the.
it's like
I
a
think it's
spin-off.
as you progress in like the different ways of doing it. I think you do come up with, oh, I this is my preferred method. Like for me,
Yes,
I think I do go more towards that because with all the chopping and dropping and like the mulching and like all these different things, I don't like to have my soil bare. I
yes.
really don't, because one, the weeds will come up, and two, I'm not feeding it. And when you leave the soil bare here in Florida, at least
Oof.
with mine, when I come back, the same. It's back again to square one. Maybe not right away, but it depletes and it's so dry. And even just putting that layer over it, um, so I do like that. That's one of the things that I rarely ever not have my soil covered.
Yes, I
So
also agree with that. It all depends on what you like and what you find, especially
mhm.
with abundance, like we covered soil. It's important to see as well as how to treat pests and diseases. That's another
Yeah.
thing because it's not really if you're gonna get them, it's when you're gonna get them.
Mm-hmm.
Three is finding the plants that you prefer, finding the things that you'll love, finding the things that you'll eat. So that's really
That you'll
important.
eat.
Four,
Yes.
your climate, what your climate is looking out throughout the 4 seasons, throughout the
Mm-hmm.
year. When is your best time? Because I feel so honored to say we're growing during winter. That is our
Mm-hmm.
main
Yeah.
peak growing season, while other people are
Yeah.
covered in snow and they're not doing anything. And so that's something I love, especially with agroforestry, is that you're gardening all year round.
Yeah.
There's not one thing that won't perform. And so it all depends on what you love as well as your passion, because what is abundance without passion? And
Mm-hmm.
so something I realized is like with Itzia is that we have found our passion. We have found what we love, gardening, and our gardens reflect off of how much passion we have. And that's
Yeah.
why there's so much going on in our gardens that we can't even keep count of what's going on. And so it's always a work in progress. Is there any other points you would like to bring up when it comes to achieving abundance? Because there's many we could cover.
Yeah, I think definitely choosing what you want to grow. I mean, you can choose to grow carrots and you're going to get 2, 3 carrots. I'm not saying don't grow carrots. I'm just saying if you can choose that, or you can choose a tomato plant that's going to give you a whole bunch of tomatoes. You can choose to grow something that will give you one cauliflower, one whatever. Well, broccoli you get more of, but or you can choose to grow green beans and then you'll be harvesting green beans all the time. So I think definitely choosing what you want. And if you have a cucumber that is going to give you cucumbers in 45 days, why would you pick one that's going to give it to you in 80 days? So like looking at the back to see what dates and when you're going to get the bigger harvest, or I think the sooner harvest. I think that's one of the things that I do look for. um
Yes, I definitely agree. So to wrap up this episode, let's go ahead and discuss about what our favorite plants, what are plants we will never bring back to the garden, and something we're interested to grow. You start. You start.
oh my gosh, don't do that to me. um so something I one of my favorite plants I would say is definitely chayote. I
Yeah.
wanted that plant so bad, because we use it a lot. We use it in stews. We use it in. I blend it a lot, like to make anything, like to make a spaghetti. I'll hide it in there when I'm making rice. I use it a lot. We eat it raw. I make lemon water with it. Like a lemonade. So that was one of the things I really, really wanted. That and comfrey. One of the things I never want to bring back, I think Malabar spinach. So I liked it, The berries. Well, I'm not even gonna say that because the berries were a lot of fun, and I loved them for like the kids would love to color with them.
Yes.
But anywhere that seed dropped, Emmanuel, anywhere it dropped, I had to pull, and that thing makes a lot of seeds, Malabars. So I think I'm not gonna say I'll never grow it, but if I do, it's gonna be in a pot and it's gonna be somewhere where it's not gonna fall. And I have one growing right now, and I'm watching it because it's flowering. I'm watching it to make sure it doesn't drop the seeds. So as much as it does so good here, it'll feed you. So don't say never, but definitely it is one that wherever it falls, because we are such a subtropical type of place, it will grow, and it will grow more and more and more. And wherever it falls, it's gonna give you tons of plants, and you'll have to be weeding them out.
Yes.
And what was the other question?
Another question is, what are you like wanting to try out?
What am I wanting to try out? I have been wanting to do a lot more vertical. I do a lot of vertical gardening, but I want to do even more. I haven't had a lot of success with doing the vertical gardening with like the pumpkins.
Mm-hmm.
When I try to trail them up, maybe I'm not consistent enough. They end up like sprawling everywhere still. But I've seen how beautiful they look. So I've been wanting to do like a vertical pumpkin patch or
Yeah.
something like that. So definitely that is one of the things I do want to get more into, like doing a lot more mulch and fruit trees. So I have added a lot of fruit trees as of now, but I want to, start to gradually get more into that.
Yes, I definitely agree. And so on my side of the story as well, I'm gonna go based off of my garden performance, not the nurseries. So my favorite plant right now has to be calacasias. I don't know if you heard of it, but
I know.
calacasias, they are a tropical ornamental plant. And so they
Okay.
can be grown indoors or outdoors. And
Non-edible
so
or edible?
they're not edible. They're pretty.
Okay.
They're only pretty, but good pretty. And so
It's
there's
not
two
going to give
varieties
you
I have.
abundance, Emmanuel.
So, they have given me abundance. They have given me abundance because something they do serve is, one, looks. Two is that they get really big where they fill in, but also they help keep in moisture because of how
Very
big the
nice.
leaves get.
Okay.
And so they are beneficial in certain area. But the varieties I have right now is Mojito and Black Magic. Those have been performing so well for me. The leaves have got tremendous. The coloring, because the Mojito is a light green leaf with splashes of
Uh-huh.
black, and Black Magic is just a straight black leaf.
So is this an outdoor or indoor?
It could be both, but mine's is an outdoor right now, and it's been
Hmm.
doing so well. It's so pretty. It reminds me of a regular alocasia, but
Okay.
shorter and more easier to control and more useful.
Yeah.
And so that has to be my favorite plant. Something I probably might never bring back into my garden would have to probably be, let's think, out of the many things.
It's
I shouldn't.
hard, right?
It is hard because it's like, what one thing would I not bring back out of the many things I've tried
Yeah.
growing? Well, something I probably wouldn't bring back would probably be the loofahs. The loofahs,
No.
like, they are so vigorous and
Well, that
very
they
big. And so I'm not saying never to it, but I'm gonna say it's on a temporal hold. It's on a temporary hold right now. Until I might try growing it over there at the farm. So
Uh-huh.
we can get something cool growing there, but that's about it. And something new I want to come try out for the garden this upcoming year. Something I've been fighting for is cacao. So
Oh,
we have
okay.
a cacao tree growing at the farm, and it has produced, and we're currently getting ready to
Really?
harvest our very first cacao. However, I want it here. I want the
Hmm.
cacao here.
So do
And
you know
so
what zone it does good in, or
it's
like is it
supposed to do well, like here in Southern
okay?
Florida, because of the subtropical climate.
Mhm.
However, I don't know what the issue is. I have to do an investigation on what's going on.
Uh-huh.
But the leaves would burn, the plant would die. We already lost, out of the three cacaos we had, we lost one. One produced, the other one is pushing out new growth because it got badly burned. And so that would be something I want to bring back or like try new. Other than that, I think like something I do want to try, which it's kind of like a long shot, but I want to see if I could attempt to grow peonies in my garden, because peonies are
Okay.
so
They're
pretty.
beautiful.
I know
Yeah.
they aren't meant for our climate. However, I have
Mm,
successfully grown a hydrangea for almost 3 years now, and it has rebloomed for me. And so I'm not gonna say never to peonies.
mine are in the shade in the ground and they're not dead.
That's
They
the I
don't
like
look
how
great. They don't look
when it
great,
ever comes to
but
hydrangeas,
they're
we
not
always
dead.
say they are not dead because they're
Yeah.
not flourishing, but they're
Yeah.
not dead.
It has little
So
blooms, but I know I have to feed a little bit more acid. Like
yeah,
I have to change the pH a little bit, and they do better. But they do need that cold. But let's
yeah.
not go there because they're gonna be okay.
Yeah, I have been just moving my side crazy. And so
Yeah.
yeah, and so that is a wrap up for today's episode number 7. Once again, a huge shout out to Itzia for joining with us on this episode. It is amazing to connect with another Floridian gardener here, and so I can't wait because hey, like I told Kay last time, is because what we do is we plan a lot, and I'm out looking for because what we need to do is because we are a beginning business. We opened up on October, so we don't even have a year yet or half a year. And so I'm trying to get a word out of the nursery. It is pinned on my Instagram profile page, and it is pinned as a YouTube channel on the YouTube channel as well on my main one. But I need to try to do some more exposure side of things. But if there's anything, because one of the things I know you mentioned was the turmerics, is if I successfully get any
Yeah.
turmerics from there, I don't have an issue trying to send you some out
That's
at
exciting.
all. Or I don't know how far away you are. Like you said, you're like in Central. I'm like
I'm
thinking
in,
3 hours, 5 hours.
no, I'm in St. Lucie County. So I'm
Oh,
in the Treasure Coast. So I'm not too bad. I'm about 30 minutes away from Okeechobee, if you're
okay,
familiar with Lake Okeechobee.
okay.
Um, so but yeah, I'm excited to look into your nursery because I want to see if you guys have neem trees or mulberry trees or things like that.
Oh
I have
yeah,
a Pakistan mulberry that I'm waiting for it to give me fruits. It's huge, but I haven't gotten any fruit. So hopefully this year.
yeah. We have a
Um,
neem tree growing right now. We haven't propagated from it yet, but we do have a mulberry that I will be propagating soon. That's covered in mulberries. And so it'd be cool. Yeah, I just searched it up about from you said St. Lucie.
yeah.
Yeah, St. Lucie, because the nursery's in Parkland. It's about an
Oh,
hour and
okay.
10 minutes.
That's not bad.
And so
I should
hey,
go one day.
if you're willing to drive the hour and something, you will be leaving with hundreds or dozens of plants for you to take home, because I do not have an issue with giving away plants. That's my
I don't
pride
either.
joy. That's
Even
my
if people
pride
don't
joy.
come looking for plants, I'm like, oh, here, cuttings.
Like I had a friend come over to the nursery the other day, and she was like, "Oh my god, I don't want to take your plants." I'm like, "Take them."
There
I'm
you
like,
go.
"Take them. We have a lot. Take them."
I'll clip the tomatoes, and I'm like, did you know that the tomatoes grow from a cutting? Here, take it.
Yeah, that's what we are
Thank
doing
you.
at the farm as
Everything comes from
well.
the cutting. Here, take the cuttings. I don't know if they grow them or not, but I'm like handing seeds and I think it just makes us feel like, oh, we're giving more and sharing more.
We're
So
giving back to the community. So, all right, so that wraps up today's episode. It was such a fun time. It's
yes, of
spending
course, me
time with you,
too.
discussing about how to achieve abundance. And so, once again, we are a up and coming, growing podcast called Growing Generations Podcast. We will be on next week with a next new gardener, one of my very good friends. And that guest will be announced next week. So you got to wait an entire week until that guest is announced. Um, so we are super excited. Make sure to go ahead and follow Itzia on Instagram. That's where she's more active. But don't forget, also follow her on YouTube, because she also does videos over there. But she's mainly active on Instagram. So make sure you go follow her over there. There's going to be links towards all her media pages on the description box. So make sure you go check it out. And so that's going to be wrapping up this week's episode. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you so much, Jay, for moderating once again. And we
Yeah,
will see you guys next week for next week. New topic, new guest, and new episode. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you later. Bye, everyone.
thank you. Bye. I'm gonna